Hi everyone, sorry to hit you with yet another video so soon. This is one I wanted to make for a while, or at least I've toyed with the idea, and I thought while my speech is reasonable and I'm not jumping around too much, today would be a good idea to do it. I want to talk a little bit about my background and my faith in particular. I'm denied about doing this because I know that quite a few of you who watch my videos aren't Christians, and the last thing you want is someone preaching at you, and it's the last thing I want to do. That's not to say that I'm embarrassed by my faith or anything like that. It's just that I know that the way that Christians sometimes portray themselves is very unhelpful, and not done intentionally, but often we're not very good at the way we portray ourselves, and probably I'm as guilty and will be as guilty as that as others are. But really my faith is part of who I am, and really my YouTube page is a video blog of nothing else, and I started it originally, as people who have watched most of my videos will know, to record my health problems, and usually I spend my time whittering on about that. So anyhow, I just quickly wanted to run through where I've come from, what my spiritual journey has been. This might take a couple of videos, so I might find that you only watch one, but if you do, and it's helpful, and that's the most important thing, that it's helpful, and it helps you to understand who I am, then it's been worthwhile. I come from a family, I live in the southeast of England in a small market town. It's where I still live, it's where I've been brought up, and I've seen lots of changes over the years. It grown from a small community, becoming much bigger, although still fairly small in comparison to most places. My parents were not Christians. In fact, my dad was totally anti-Christian, really, because of experiences he'd had with some of the strict Baptists that live nearby, who were very sort of legalistic in the way that they approached the scriptures, and it was all about, you shouldn't do this and you shouldn't do that, and you know, if you did something on a Sunday. I know that my granddad was criticised because he went and rounded up some cattle that had escaped on the Sunday because he worked on the Sunday, and this sort of stuff, and it really put him off of the whole Christian thing. And so as a child, I was very much in an environment where the gospel wasn't something that we even talked about. Certainly God wasn't spoken about. Did go to a Sunday school when I was very young, but again, it was okay, but there was still always something about it that put me off. By the time I was a teenager, I didn't have any faith at all in anything. I really believed that we were just here. We lived a few years, we died, that was it. I could see no reconciliation between the idea of God and science and all of these things, and it made no sense. But at the same time, I was quite a lonely young man, really. Having said that, I had lots of friends, but there was always this sort of emptiness inside me. I know Christians often talk about this, but there was an emptiness inside me, something that wasn't quite, that was missing for me. At about 14, I went along to a Christian coffee bar for the first time, and they were doing something to reach out to the teenagers. We'd often been outside the church. It was in the church hall. We'd often been outside the church in the evenings, me and my mates, and we could hear all the old ladies singing really boring old hymns, and we would sometimes shout abuse at them and that sort of stuff, and sort of parodied them and this sort of stuff. because the whole thing was just such an irrelevance to us. But anyhow, I went along to this coffee bar, and it was the first time I'd heard what it was to be a Christian. And over the course of a few days, me and my mate, we used to play the guitar and sing songs and things, and we wanted to do this, and someone said, well, the only way people we allow to are Christians. And there was something stirring inside me at the time, but I really wasn't wanting to stand up in front of my mates and make a commitment, especially as church was really associated with boredom and irrelevance. So anyhow, we made a commitment and we played, and they tried to get me to go along to the youth club, but I really didn't want to stand out amongst my friends, and everything fizzled out. And then about 4 years later, I met who's now my wife, Janice, and she, by this time I'd already, like a lot of teenagers, they seem to think it's a new thing, but it's not. I was out partying most of the time, getting drunk. In fact, I got to the point where I wouldn't really go out unless I was quite drunk. I certainly couldn't walk past a pub without having a drink. It was the Queen's Jubilee day, and I'd been out drinking all day, and I'd run out of money and couldn't get out of my hometown. My brother was going somewhere and I couldn't go because I'd been drinking so much. And I stayed back, and it was there that I met Janice, who I'm now married to. And anyhow, Janice did have a faith. I don't know why she even went near me, because at that time my alcohol consumption was pretty high. And she started to go along to a thing on a Sunday evening which talked about what it was to be a Christian. And I used to get quite annoyed because she would go to these things with and put me last, and I couldn't quite understand how that could be. But anyhow, they eventually opened it up to anyone who wanted to know more about what it was to be a Christian, and I started to go along, usually after having had quite a few drinks. At that time I used to smoke about 40 a day, and the people there were always so gracious. They never ever said anything, let me smoke in their homes, never ever made a big thing of the fact that I came in, often having had a few drinks and making their house smell of smoke. But they accepted me as I was and didn't make a big thing of it. And anyhow, I learnt a little bit about what Christian faith was about. And then one evening someone was talking about having a relationship with God. And this was something that I must have heard before, but I knew nothing about. And there were those times when I was on my own, when I felt really lonely. And the idea of having someone there always, who would never leave me and always be with me, was so appealing. And over a few weeks, at the end of these few weeks, this person had been talking, and I secretly made a commitment. My wife, who was there, my girlfriend, went forward, Janice went forward and made a commitment, and I secretly made a commitment and kept it quiet for a good week. But at that time I felt a change inside me, something real that changed, a love, a cleanness, that's all I can say. The big thing that kept me back from being a Christian was I knew that I wasn't good enough and I couldn't change myself. And the fact that they told me that that wasn't the problem, that God was the one who changed me, would change me, helped me to take that step. And that was the beginning of my faith, the faith that I have now had for approximately, it must be 33 years or so now. My parents told me it was a phase I was going through, but it's a phase I'm still going through. Although my faith has changed over the years, and I will talk about that in the next video. As my 10 minutes are just about to run out, so I'll speak to you in the next video.